will be, I'm going to put the story up. I said Saturday would be the day for my story, and that is about, I was going to talk about my uncle in the Brinks heist, but I'm going to do a little more background. There's a few videos up now on YouTube on Dame's Place, and I'm going to explain. My father and my uncle raised me when my mother died, and I grew up mainly in Rochester up until I was 10. Then I moved to Florida. So I was a bartender for 10 years at a restaurant, a mob bar, and Trigger Joe Marone was like my godfather. And I worked for him for that decade, and I got married, left, had a child, and then I ended up working at Attica prison after that for 15 years. In that time, I worked a few more bars and at the hospital and at a lab. So sometimes it's all scattered, how I'm explaining to you as I watch somebody tell a really good story today from where I'm from. And I realize, because so many things happen at the same time, and when you're in a small area like that, having worked at the mob bar, the prison, and the hospital, they overlap, as well as that my great-great-grandfather was the first chief of police, and my grandfather was an ad guy in Buffalo, but he also ran the Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, Wyoming Ministry of Concern. It was a charity organization. And they did a lot of other things. My grandmother was a writer for the Catholic Press, and so was my mother, her mother-in-law, my grandfather's mother, and they wrote the stories of the Holy Family and for St. Anthony's Messenger and the Catholic Press all over. The story of Joseph, the story of Ruth, the story of a lot. But that's a little background on what I'm telling you when I'm telling you these stories, where I could be coming from. And I grew up in Rochester, and my uncle worked for the mob. He was a mob guy, and he worked for the A-team. Well, he was with Tommy Torpy and Tommy Taylor, the Irish guys, and they were going on their own as the C team, just breaking off the rackets. That's my uncle, and I grew up there, and I grew up in those places that are talked about in the mob wars, like the farm in Scottsville, not the Valenti farm. There was another farm, a horse farm there as well. And I'll tell you about the places that I went, like the Glass Onion, the Blue Gardenia, Runs on the Ridge, Hogan's Hideaway, which is now, it may still be that, but some of these places aren't even there. But if you look at my posts on Instagram and here on YouTube, go back in the videos, it'll explain to you a little about those places, and not even explaining, I'll show you on the maps. I've got a lot of them posted like that. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm going to tell you a story later, a little bit more, I think, about what I was living like at that time in Rochester when those mob wars were going on, and my uncle was involved and my father was there. He was involved as well, but not in a direct way, just because you were related, because you're brothers. And what happened to us, and how we went to stay on Canisius Lake in a hideaway cabin. We had to snowshoe in, and him marrying my stepmother, who was pregnant by her ex-husband, and her father on his deathbed asked him to marry her. So he felt he had a mother for me and could give this child a name. And that's the background, but we were escaping Rochester at this time, and now I see it was the mob wars at the time, and I'll explain to you about the Irish connection with the bombs, the car bombs, and then that goes into Mad Dog Sullivan, Joe Mad Dog Sullivan, that escaped from Attica, the only guy to escape from Attica, and how it's all related. But that's going to take me a while to get there. So here's this. I'll do this now, and then I'll get back with you later on tonight. Got some things to do that came up, but we'll be back later, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, and y'all have a blessed day, and I will chat at you later. Peace.